I'm basically raising Dorothy Parker, which is, it can be tough. The other night, I'm just going to take another swig of beer. It was very late and I had to tuck her in and read her a story, but because it was really late, I decided I was just going to read her a fable. And I read her the fable, and she got really mad and she rolled her eyes. And she just glared at me. And she said, "Daddy, that's not a story, that's a phrase!" You sort of see what I'm up against. So I was driving with the kid the other day, and she said, "Daddy, when I grow up, I don't want to get married. Is that okay?" And I said, "Of course that's okay. Your mother and I are no longer married, as you know, and we're much better friends now that we're not married, and we're both happier." And she said, "Yeah, especially Mom." Then we drove for a while in cold silence. That was fucking matter. And as we were driving, we drove past St. Mary's Hospital. And I was like, "Hey Lily, check this fucking place out." Because I like to swear at my child. "That's where you were born." And she said, "Oh yeah, I remember." I said, "What do you mean you remember? You were 0 years old, you idiot." I said, "You fucking jerk. You were 0 years old, there's no way you remember." And she said, "Why don't you tell me the story?" So I told her the story of her birth. And the story of her birth goes like this. Her mom was beginning to develop a fever. And the doctor, who was this complete asshole, and we hated him, said, "Get ready for a C-section." I said that to the mom, not to me. I was in the corner. I was trying to finish a crossword in peace. But, and then the most amazing thing happened. Her mom took control of the room and said, "No, I'm not getting ready for a C-section. Give me 2 buckets of ice." And then the doctor, because he was an asshole, just marched off and had a hissy fit. And then this new doctor, a really lovely French-Canadian lady, came in with 2 buckets of ice. And so what her mom did was she was able to get her temperature down and her fever down, and then Lily started to get born. And the amazing French-Canadian lady said to me, "She's going to need your help getting born." And I said, "Oh, holy shit." And so then she said, you have to put your hand on her head. So, and then at this point, the kid interjects in the story and says, like, "Okay, so where was your hand exactly?" I said, "Well, in your mother's vagina." And she said, "Oh, Daddy." So that's not the first time that I've had my hand up. No, never mind. Okay, seriously. So, like, whatever, man. Like, just, that's the way it goes. So that's where it came from, and that's where I have my hand. Whatever. I'm just telling you the story. You know? Like, just be cool for once. And then she said, "Well, I hope you at least wash your hands." And I hadn't. But it was the weirdest thing because I was like pushing, it felt like the doctor said, "Apply pressure to the head of the baby." And it seemed like I was pushing the baby back into the lady. Like it seemed like it was the exact wrong thing. Like, that's how it looked like. And, but then all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, out came a Lily right into my arms. And my God, her face was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. She looked exactly like Gollum. But I mean, like, the thing about babies is that they're gross looking. Like, they are, like objectively they're gross looking. They look like fucking, like, old men. They all look like disgusting old men. Wrinkly old men. But there's another property that I guess babies have, is that their faces are so condensed. And so in Lily's face, and that's what I was telling her in the car, she looked like everyone I've ever loved. She looked like my mother. I don't love my father, so she didn't look like me. She looked like my mother and my father and my brother and my grandmother and my grandfather and her mother and her family and like every single person I've ever loved was just condensed in this one face. And I told her, like, as soon as I saw you, I knew that I had loved you forever, and I have known you forever, and I have loved you forever. And she just rolled her eyes. I could see it, you know, in the rearview mirror. And I said, this is really important because there are many, many children in the world who never hear, I love you. They never hear those words from their parents. And it's probably because they're like worthless pieces of shit. But maybe it's because their parents suck. And I don't suck. You know? And then she says, you know what, Daddy, this is not the way that Mommy tells the story of my birth. I said, oh yeah? And she said, yeah. And then she said, you know, the way Mommy tells the story, you're not in it at all. I said, that's okay. She said, what do you mean that's okay? I said, well, that's her point of view. She's telling the story from her point of view. And then she goes, oh, well, do you want to hear my point of view? And I said, I don't fucking care. I said, yes, I want to hear your point of view. This is what she said. I was just hanging out inside of Mommy. And then it got a little warm, and then it got a little cold. And when it got a little cold, I saw this light, and I felt this hand on my head. And the next thing I knew, I was in some guy's arms. And he looked like a daddy, I guess. And there were all these weird people there, and they were dressed in weird blue outfits, and I said, wah! Wah! And I was thinking, what is all of this? Who are you people? Why am I covered in blood? Hey, why are you cutting my umbilical cord? That's how I eat. What is this even? This is so not cool. But then, you know what, Daddy? Something cool really did happen. And I said, oh yeah? What's that? And then the kid said, well, I got to meet Mommy. Anyway, so Lily is now 9.5, and she is the best person I know, and she's taught me how to be a real goddamn human being, and I love her a lot, and she's taught me a lot about how to write stories and how to tell stories, but also, I think more importantly, how not to tell stories, because she's a really, really tough audience, and she's a very, very good editor. So I'm really, really thankful for her, and I love her very much, but I'm also very thankful that I got to tell you guys a story that was inspired by my kid. So thanks, and buy my book!